many times I feel like people, they don't want to deal with the conflict. They don't want to hurt feelings. These are some of the things in me that were exploited. When I started having my team, I got 2 people barely holding on. I ain't trying to make nobody upset. I need everybody to come to work on Mondays and Thursdays for 2 hours is what I can afford them.
Today's episode brings a blend of wit, wisdom, and real talk about workplace dynamics. We are currently in an environment where having tough conversations sometimes feels like a professional hazard, particularly for women. So how can you speak up? How can you address those conflicts, those emotions sometimes that you're feeling on the inside? You're not sure if you can share them or really name what they are, to not only show up as your best self, but really to maintain your sanity, if we can just keep it all the way real. So here to share her perspective on courageous conversations, speaking up, and managing conflict in the workplace is someone who uniquely marries professional and leadership development with comedy, with the expert of a human resources officer and the vivaciousness of a comedian. Allison Moore is not just your run-of-the-mill communications expert. She's a stand-up comedian, your self-proclaimed favorite coworker cousin with an HR aficionado with a keen eye for what we like to call elephants in the office. So she's here to be an astute observer to some of the things that we feel like we can't share in the workplace. And I want to be sure that you check out her podcast, More Laughing at Work, because it encapsulates humor, inspiration, professional development, and wealth building, all while giving you this sense of belonging. So today, she's here to help us tackle some challenging dialogues, confront those office elephants, and maybe, just maybe, make us laugh a little bit. Let's dive in. Hey, Allison.
Hey, Brittany. Hey.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this conversation because you bring this like perfect blend of comedy to a space that I feel like is the one business department that no one ever wants to like mention outside of training, which is human resources. So talk to us a little bit about how you got into the HR space and then how you marry that with comedy.
So I got into the HR space when I was in college and I was interning at this company that the assistant at that time I was doing more of this like administrative business track, but I appreciated the role of the HR person because it was a smaller office and she was the one that was really the therapist. She had to do a whole lot of managing and babysitting and all the things, and I was like, wow, that's really influential because I would see as a young professional, I'm seeing people go in her space and either come out amazing or it ain't
or not
too
so much.
Good. Right. And so I'm like, wow, I just felt like that was influential and an opportunity to really help somebody. That's how I got there. And then I kept going. Graduated from Norfolk State University. I got my bachelor's from HBCU. I'm a proud Spartan. Behold, the green and gold. I have to say that sometimes just in case, they look and say, girl, you need to pay on your alumni dues. And I'm like, but I be shouting y'all out. Don't that count? Anywho, so I went into manufacturing. So now I'm in human resources, and I spent maybe about 8 years in a manufacturing company, left from there and went to education because I wanted to, grow in leadership. So I took this job in leadership that I wasn't ready for, and that then helped me continue this. Like I started to see where I could help people, and it was the help people and preparing them for this professional journey because I felt like that there were missed opportunities in preparing a talent like me.
Yeah, you really hit on something that is at the core of the work that we get to do at Career Thrivers. It's this sense of promoting the best performer, and the best performer isn't always the best people leader. So you said something that I want to dig into a little bit more. What made you feel like you weren't ready? And then when do you remember feeling that shift of like, okay, I'm in this role and now I'm really ready to lead people?
I felt like I wasn't ready when they fired me. I didn't see it coming.
That's a sign.
I was just like, oh, so I'm not good at this? Okay. So it was reflections afterwards. And it took a minute because I was very bitter with corporate America when I got fired. I really felt like I did not see the firing coming. And I was on the heels of my mother had just passed away. And so I was grieving and I was so bitter because I got fired and they gave me a nice little severance package, which is an indication that it is not because you did something egregious. They were just like, we don't really know. You're really talented, but it's not a good fit. And so I'm like, well, you knew it wasn't a good fit over this last year that I was caring for my mother. I put her in a home nearby. So I was doing a lot of work-life balance, stretched really thin, sandwich generation, and I was so angry. So because I was angry with corporate, I was like, well, you know what? I'm not doing corporate anymore. Forget corporate. I didn't take the time to say, okay, what did you miss to get here? So it took me about 3 years because I stopped in human resources and people were lying to me and telling me that I need to be famous on TV. And that was a lie because, again, the character stuff, the maturity wasn't there. But I said, well, I'm going to do this comedy thing full time. I had been doing churches and some clean events. And so I was like, I'm going to be this full-time comedian, daggone it. And once I realized, okay, you cannot do this by yourself. You need people. Then I started my skill set, leadership, planning, was exploited. And then I was like, oh, this is why they fired me. Okay. I need to read a book. Okay. I need to learn how to talk to people. Okay, I need to help people. So it was me trying to run my own company that I got to see where I was missing some things at the company that I worked for.
Yeah, that's so good because our generation, the one under us, I don't even say the one above us, we have a bend towards entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And the data for the last 7 years tells us that the leading demographic of entrepreneurs starting a business is Black women for the last 7 years. And sometimes we don't connect that to our experiences inside of corporate America, but they are inextricably linked. Mm-hmm. We have negative experiences, whether they're due to our own decision making or the environment is not inclusive. Mm-hmm. And then we say, okay, I'm going to jump and start a business. And you said the thing that I relate to so deeply. Follow me for a second. Starting a business is much like marriage. It will reveal to you all of who you are.
Yep.
So it's less about the other person, obviously in the marriage context, and less about the business per se when you're an entrepreneur, but it will show you as a leader. And that's why I believe this topic of leadership really spans across the board. It's for women that are in corporate America. It's for women that want to start a business. Like leading a business will show you. I love that. So I want to get back to something that you talk about often, which is this sense of elephants in the office. Mm-hmm. So when you think about elephants in the office, what are maybe some of those things that we don't bring to the forefront that we kind of tiptoe around as professionals that could lead to experiences where either you're laid off, you're fired, or you have a negative experience?
This season of the Career Thrivers Show was recorded inside of AB Hillsborough Village. In the rhythm of Nashville, AB dances to a tune of inclusion and community. Curated by Nashville's own Marcy and Derek, this premier live music and event venue harmonizes local flair with a very welcoming spirit. It's more than a space. It's where Nashville's diverse heartbeat is celebrated, making every event an inclusive masterpiece. Learn more about AB at anzyblue.com.
Yeah, so there are many. So I'll talk about two different, levels. You got your office elephants. That's a segment of on my podcast where there's some missed opportunities for the leaders, where many times I feel like people, they don't want to deal with the conflict. They don't want to hurt feelings. These are some of the things in me that were exploited. When I started having my team, I got 2 people barely holding on. I ain't trying to make nobody upset. I need everybody to come to work on Mondays and Thursdays for 2 hours is what I can afford them, right? And so what I began to do was ignore some of those very clear, you probably should say something, but I don't want to say nothing because I'm scared. I don't even feel like the draw. So that then spills over to the other people. So now the team grows and teammate 3 or 4 or 5 haven't been here as long as teammate 1 and 2. They're noticing the office elephants too, but they hit them differently. So the leadership for me, where I would say that my leader missed the office elephant, that I was very clearly not prepared for that role. And they did not make it their personal assignment to help bridge that gap. My background does not include the exposure to a bunch of professional women, maybe 1 or 2, But for me, I didn't grow up in that environment. I think I might have shared on our live that we did. My aunties and family members, our thing was call center workers. That doesn't give you the same type of exposure or opportunities or put you in the same predicaments as somebody who, like, then I went into corporate America. I worked at a Fortune 100 company in human resources. So there are some things for me, it was not the lack of talent. For me, it was the lack of couth. It was the lack of knowing what to say in the right places. It was the lack of, they were taking me out to dinner and I was eating spaghetti and getting stuff all over me and making them cringe. And I didn't know that was a thing because I'm like, this spaghetti good. This one, we all get oh my God, this is cute up in here. Like, I got a Tiffany Haddish. There's noise. Like, girl, calm down. I didn't know that I was triggering my supervisor, my manager, my director. I didn't know that they're in their mind saying she could not represent us at the next level. She is not going to go. I didn't know that. Whereas my manager could have said, let's send you to etiquette class. Or let's, those types of things. So that's a small thing. Then the personality piece, because I'm like, what I'm saying? I'm honest. I'm authentic. I'm transparent. Well, nobody needs you to be that honest right now, girl. Shut up. Lie sometimes. Be less honest. Because I wasn't realizing that in my trying to prove, trying to entertain, trying to make people like me, that was my only set of skills that I thought that I had, that was essentially working against me. And so to me, those office elephants for leaders are, you see this problem. You see the impact. One big thing that leaders don't address is the one coworker who might have been there a long time, or employees been there a long time, or maybe very, very brilliant or have a lot of knowledge. So mean. So rude. And we know they rude. We're like, that's just how they are. But that makes them not want to come here. And now because she's rude, she has said stuff, or he's rude, his microaggressions are suffocating. The hostile work environment is suffocating. And so now these 4 people that are incredibly talented, they don't feel safe, and they are not giving you 50% even. Because they're like, first of all, why are you letting them insult me like this? And since you're not going to say nothing, and so those are some office elephants. Now, we'll say some of the employees, I think the office elephants there, that they can address, let's say I'm not in a leadership role. I think there's a disconnect with people, especially those of us who are not yet been titled leaders, but we want to be leaders. That's the time to start showing your leadership. And that was another thing that I missed too in my time. Don't wait until the job interview, especially when this is an internal piece. The job interview is not the beginning of you auditioning for the role. It is how you interact in the hallway. It is, did you have courage to say to your supervisor, hey, I think that Patty really feels uncomfortable when Bob makes those comments. Just wanted to let you know, not because I'm telling with their business, I haven't talked to it, I'm not being messy, but it's the opportunities are there for us to show this is what it would be like for you if I were in a different role. But a lot of times we'll be like, I'm not working extra. Who will give them whatever? And many times it's because the environment is very hostile, toxic, or whatever. It's cyclical.
It is. Yeah, what you just described, the word cloud that's in my mind is culture. Yeah. You just described what culture is. Culture is not the words on a company's website. It's not the, here's the nice language of how we are. Mm-hmm. Culture is how people, an N of one, experience your workplace. And so when you have those moments, like you mentioned, the one mean, maybe more seasoned in this scenario employee, or the teammate that just arrived on the team, mm-hmm. but they come from a different environment or from a different organization. Maybe it's tech going to financial services, right. Mm-hmm. Completely different environments, usually in org cultures. And sometimes that can clash, and how the leader, right, the N of one on that one team responds, that's your culture, mm-hmm. right? And so you hit the nail on the head, and you mentioned the word courage as well. So when we think about having courageous conversations, usually people shy away from them as, like, let's just be clear, overall, period. Yes. So like personal, professional, like pick the lane. As humans, we like to please and appease. So there's that. Then you marry that in a corporate context, and we really shy away from courageous conversations. Why do you think that is? And what advice would you share for us to kind of get over that fear and tackle some of those harder conversations?
Yeah. Get a therapist. because you got to work on that internal stuff. You know, the feet, like you said, it's not just at work. You scared to stick up for yourself at home. You ain't sticking up for yourself at church. You not creating boundaries in some of your after school activities, you know, and the fraternities, the organizations, the whatever. So oftentimes we really need to allow ourselves to get some support so we can talk through what it is that is making me feel like I should not stand up for myself or speak up for somebody else, because therein then will help you with doing this at work. The other thing is I had to make the decision that it is less about me, because then I went into this season of, okay, I got to say it a certain way. Like I put a lot of pressure on how I was delivering it based on how people were receiving me. And so you do have to be accountable, right? Like you can't be the type that's like, well, I didn't mean it like that. But everybody's always dead when you finish. You might not have meant it, but nobody ever smiles after you're done. So you have to then say, okay, well, maybe I am a little harsh, or maybe I am a little, less thoughtful about the person on the other end. But then I would not say stay there. Then I would say, again, when we're working with this therapy piece, when I know that I have done nothing but cared about you, I'm really kind, I really do not mean to hurt you, we have to solve this problem, then I cannot hold on to, or I cannot not say anything because of my fear of how you're gonna take it. And that's where some of that relationship and that I call them emotional deposits. And I try to talk to the leadership teams that I consult with. How many emotional deposits are you making? It's just like an account. If you are making emotional deposits with your team, the one time you're a little off is not going to make them quit. They're saying it's a toxic environment because you've been off over and over and over again. You are pulling out of an account that there's nothing there. When their parents passed away, you didn't say, my condolences. When their kids were going through, you didn't check in. When they were obviously very ill or just out of it, you didn't say, why don't you take some time off? Don't worry about getting on this meeting. When they said to you, I'm stressed, it's a large workload, and you just say, well, everybody's stressed. It's not the answer, managers. So you're not making the emotional deposit. So then you get in this space where you say something, and then people are offended. A lot of times it's because we miss the opportunities outside of the conflict to build that relationship that allows us to have those conflicts, those courageous conversations. And so I spend a lot of time in my relationships and rapports making emotional deposits. I am going to make sure that you know that I care about you. I look people in the eye. I am investing. I'm going to, and I'm not lying and it's not flattery, but I make sure that when I come with something, don't even play me like I'm being mean. And so for me, I had to settle in that and be okay with that. Like, Allison, you're not trying to take these people down. You're not being mean. You didn't mean it that way. So if somebody did receive it, we're going to take that feedback, but we cannot hide behind how are people going to take it, because the problem is not being solved. I looked up a couple of years ago and I saw we're repeating the same things. And it's because I did not deal with this elephant in the room, because I'm around here worried about what they're going to say when I know I didn't have those intentions.
Hey Thriver, I'm excited for you to get your hands on your copy of the Blueprint to More Visibility and Influence. This is a powerful free resource that's designed to catapult your influence and amplify your impact in your business or company. Now, this isn't just another online guide. This is your strategic companion that's going to walk you through the world of personal branding and authentic leadership. Inside, you'll unlock essential strategies that are going to help you do a few things. One, sharpen your self-awareness and own your unique story, navigate the complexities of workplace dynamics with more confidence, elevate your presence in any room, and ensure that you are not only seen, but also heard and valued. Why wait for opportunities when you can create them? With this blueprint, you'll learn how to cultivate a personal brand that commands respect and opens the door for new opportunities. And the best part, you'll start seeing the world differently, not just as a place where you fit in, but one where you stand out. You'll transform your self-doubt into more self-assurance and turn your aspirations into tangible achievements. So join me in our community of Thrivers who are making their mark. Don't let this moment pass you by. Head on over to letsthrivetogether.com to download your free copy of the Blueprint to More Visibility and Influence today. Start your journey and let's thrive together.
I think that's so true when you add demographics
Yeah.
into that. So a lot of the organizations that we work with at Career Thrivers, they have some type of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. And one of the things that we've noticed is this conversation that you're sharing with us. It's not the overarching strategy like that. Now hear me all the way through. Is somewhat the easy part, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there is plenty of data, actually since the late 1960s, of what works in this space in the corporate environment. Like DEI did not start in 2020.
Right.
It started in the late 1960s. So pick your org, right? In terms of examples. But then once that's in place, where the rubber meets the road is in the sustainability of it. And it's really doesn't start at the top. Shout out to all my executive level leaders, all my CDOs. Like we have to have that structure and that leadership, but it's really made in the middle with the mid-level leader. So what would you say to the mid-level manager who's like, okay, Allison, I hear you. I'm resonating with you. I want to have the courageous conversation, but I have some constructive feedback. I have some constructive feedback to share. And let's just make this real specific. Okay. I'm a white male manager, mid-level leader, and I have some constructive feedback to share with the only Black woman that's on my team.
Yeah.
What would you tell that leader who is thinking in his mind, like, yes, I've made the emotional deposits, I think. I also need to address this lack of performance or, this challenge. How would you coach him to give her feedback that's constructive, but to not avoid the courageous conversation?
Yeah, that's great. I would, it depends on where I was at in this process, right? Like if this is something that they need to do tomorrow, then I would have okay, here's what we do. You're going in the office tomorrow, right? But if I met him 1 month prior or 6 months prior, I would suggest or encourage him to be intentional about taking individual one-on-one DEI type courses and things. If you're going to continue to be in this space where you have this workforce or part of your workforce that's not only, you need to read a book. You need to make sure that you are including in your own personal professional development what type of words are triggering, what are microaggressions. It's amazing to me how many people in this space that fit that example. Like, what's a microaggression? Tom. I was just with a friend yesterday. We're working on a show before we flew in. And he has this, and I mentioned Alabama. And he's like, what happened in Alabama? Your algorithms didn't show you Alabama? You're not following some of the things you need to follow. So let's say, for that person, I would say, you already know it's going to come. At some point, you're going to have to give feedback to your people. And if you are uncomfortable, I appreciate that. That's a good sign that you even care. Read. There's a list of things that you can do. Just insert yourself. Then if it's, okay, I got to deal with this tomorrow. I got to give this constructive feedback tomorrow. I would tell Tom, is his name Tom? Because I sure gave him Tom. Okay, Tom.
We're
Hey,
rolling
Tom.
with it. We're rolling.
Hey, Tom. I would say to Tom, don't have the conversation. If your conversation is different than what you said to Becca, that's weird to me. What did you say to Becca when Becca wasn't performing? Then have the same conversation with Shaniqua. And that's where it's like, you don't have to reference the basketball team, Tom. You don't have to reference nothing else. You just stick to do the same thing that you're doing with others. And I have seen where some leaders, they'll do too much, just
trying to relate, right?
I read the Jet magazine. You like that?
Like, what does that have to do with what we're doing? Now you made me feel weird because now you making me feel like you're doing something different that you would do to anybody else. Like, just talk to me like you do every other employee, and let's stick to the performance. Then that eliminates me feeling like, oh, did you say this because I'm Black? Did you say this because I'm a woman? What you trying to say, Tom? I don't even have all of that because you were telling me about my performance based on the expectations that you were clear and you gave to me before, because that's where it gets tricky. We don't even really say what we want people to do and what they're supposed to do, what their outcomes, and we're like, you're not meeting what is the performance, Tom? So for me, it would be clarity on what the role is. Do some own work. This is a great example of leaders. We cannot help how we were born, period. And we cannot help being born into the world and society that we are born into. Nothing that happened before we got here is our fault. Now it's just about what are we doing with what we have. We already know diversity is profitable. having the little girl from the hood be very creative and very outspoken and very, once we help her with some professional etiquette, she's an advantageous. She's going to help us give insight to the millennials. Having the senior developer who's been around for a long time and we appreciate, they've been here since before this place was even built. We need them. We appreciate that wisdom. That's valuable. So, we have to do our part ahead of time, that we know these teams have these very rich in color and experiences. So what are we doing as middle managers to get ahead of that, to play offenses instead of defense?
Absolutely. And I would add to that, I think for anyone in any role, any level of leadership, whether you're leading yourself, leading people, leading leaders, or leading organizations, we teach a framework called empathy conversations. And it starts with asking the question. So in that same scenario, Tom might ask Shaniqua, hey, you've been with us for a quarter now. We're having our 90-day check-in. How do you think your performance is going? Let's do a start, stop, and continue, or let's do a plus and minus, plus delta, whatever your organization uses. But give the talent an opportunity to have a self-assessment reflection with you. And then as the leader, it opens up the door for you to do the acknowledgement, but then to fill in the gap. So I think asking the question up front is a great way to kind of mitigate some of that kind of overthinking that we do internally as just people, to make sure that we're getting it right, when really empathy is about the other person. So if we're putting ourselves in their shoes, we're always getting it right. Well, Allison, this has been an amazing conversation. Before we wrap up, I have to ask you, because we are career thrivers, we're creating a community of corporate thrivers and women that thrive in their life and in their career. So what does thriving mean to you?
Thriving means to me that I'm flourishing, that I'm moving forward better. Not moving forward, repeating the same thing, but there's forward movement, but it's growth, it's evolution, it's a flourishing, it's the good moving forward, blossomed. But hold on, wait, should I have got me one of those Webster versions? Give me 10 seconds.
No,
let me
that
Google
was perfect.
something. Okay, I'm gonna Google something.
And I see you moving forward. I see you blossoming, and I see you flourishing. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me. Thank you, career thrivers. Ow.